We're bringing in our political panel, welcoming in the studio Labor MP Kate Thwaites. Kate, welcome back. And Liberal MP Keith Wolahan, welcome to you too.
Thank you.
Keith, well, let's start there since Bob Katter took us there. When was the last time you splashed the cash for a food or beverage purchase in this building, Kate?
Oh, in general, Greg, it was a very long time ago for me. I don't think I have had cash since before the pandemic. But I did want to take this opportunity, if we're going to talk about matters in the building, to talk about something else going on in the building, which is today we marked 2 years since the Setting the Standard report in this place, which was a landmark report looking at some really serious issues around how staff and other workers in this place have been treated, bullying, harassment, allegations like that. It is really important that we both marked that anniversary today and that we've had progress in that 2 years. We do have new support bodies for staff. We have a code of conduct for MPs, which is really important. There is more work to do. We do still need consequences for people who do the wrong thing, but it is really important, as we're talking about what happens in this building, that we also just note that today is that day and there's still more work to be done to make this a safe workplace, particularly for women.
Yep, thank you for doing that. We had the Speaker telling us that on this program a little earlier in the week. Keith, you can pick up on setting the standard, or set the standard if you wish, but on the cash question, do you think Bob Katter's late to the news, that that's not the way we do things around here anymore?
Yes and no. I had a moment, I haven't used cash in a while, but I had a moment where I wished I did. I was with my children at a breakfast in a cafe and my banking was shut down. Right. And the reason it was shut down is because the bank wanted to get my attention for updating their anti-money laundering compliance. I then heard that that happened to many people. And what it shows is that people do value redundancy. Although we're using cash a lot less, it is very important for when the system goes down. And whether that's a cyber attack or a natural disaster, there is a role for cash. It is legal tender. But I do know that Bob Katter got given his meal for free, but he's very hungry for justice. And I think that's an important point to make.
Well observed, yes. Someone was looking after Bob when they denied him his $50 note. Look, let's move on to stage 3 tax cuts. Kate, and I don't know how they're going down in Jagga or even, in another part of Melbourne in the Dunkley by-election soon approaching. But how do you explain to those eager to get it that this is not going to deliver to them cost of living relief in the near term, since it doesn't arrive until July, and they're battling with those pressures right now?
Well, thank you very much for asking me how they're going down in Jagga, Greg. They're going down well in Jagga, and I was out as a good local member door knocking some people in Bundoora just last week, talking to them about these changes. It's absolutely no doubt the cost of living and the pressures around cost of living are front of mind for so many people at the moment. And the discussions I had with people were clear. They really appreciated that the government is giving them a bigger tax cut, that they will see that from July 1, and that we are doing the other work that we have already been putting in place: cheaper medicines, investments in Medicare, cheaper childcare. People do understand that government has some tools, not all the tools, and that this government has taken a decision to be on the side of people who are feeling that cost of living pressure at the moment. And certainly that's the feedback I got from a whole range of people, women, men, range of ages. People understood that this was us standing up for Australians who do need that support right now.
So on that anecdotal answer, Keith, it sounds like the politics of it might work, and I think courtesy of your question posed in question time today, you seem to be operating on the assumption that this was nakedly political. Was it? Did you get the answer you wanted when you asked a question quoting Jim Chalmers? Essentially, I think the inference was that he did this purely and solely because of the Dunkley by-election.
Well, that was the question. It was an answer, but that's question time. We understand how that works. But that's the point. This was the motive, and the timing of this does matter. No doubt people are hurting, and no doubt the extra pay that they'll receive in a tax cut is welcome. No one denies that. But how it happened and the timing matters too. We've got a by-election in Victoria, in Melbourne, not far from both of our seats, on the 2nd of March. And the Treasurer on 7:30 report on Monday night admitted, he even used the word frankly, and it's nice to hear the Treasurer be frank, he admitted that frankly they wanted the timing done by the Dunkley by-election. Well, newsflash, Australians have been hurting for 18 months. Cost of living didn't just happen after summer. It was happening right up to Christmas, over the summer last year, through all the rate rises and all the costs of everything going up. So this is something, if it mattered, it should have been debated last year. Bring Australians into your trust, explain why, prosecute it, and then deliver it
and
when
you
it
would be
matters.
prepared to support it, as you are now, had it been brought forward last year?
Oh, it's a hypothetical we'll never know the answer to, but given we've supported it now, you can assume we probably would, because cost of living does matter and it matters to us.
Associated question on cost of living. You may have noticed this afternoon, Kate, that Alan Fells completed a review into issues of price gouging for the ACTU, but it's kind of running in parallel with some projects the government has itself ordered. There are no current laws that would curtail a business from charging whatever it likes, effectively. Lots of suggestions made by Alan Fells, including tougher rules on mergers, airport prices being directly regulated like utilities, import cars in parallel with official channels. You up for any of those as a government?
Well, Greg, obviously that report just came out this afternoon, so I haven't had a chance to look in detail, but I would say that Alan Fells obviously knows his stuff in this space, former head of the ACCC, and it is important that we have competition. It is important that people in our communities feel like they're getting a fair price. I think this government absolutely recognises that. We have in fact already asked the ACCC to conduct an inquiry into supermarkets and what's going on with prices there. And again, going back to talking to people in my community, I know that that is a big concern for people. We all have the experience of going to the supermarket at the moment, filling the bag and thinking, hold on, how did that cost what it did? So absolutely, it's something that I think needs more looking at. We welcome the work that Alan Fells has done on it and that the government is continuing to do to tackle this.
There are a mixture of suggestions here, Keith. Some are interventionist with government regulation, others are, a bit more standoffish price monitoring and the like. Do you see a role for more rampant competition enhancement in and across our economy?
I welcome Alan Fells producing this report, and I'm not going to dismiss it because it was commissioned by the ACTU. Who commissions a project doesn't matter to me, and it shouldn't when we're formulating good public policy. We will look at the recommendations. I had a quick glance, but I'm on the House Economics Committee, and we are looking into productivity and dynamism. And we haven't finished that report yet. But one of the things we've learned from the evidence we heard is that the Australian economy does lend itself to oligopolies, and oligopolies are where there's not enough competition. For example, in supermarkets, Coles and Woolworths dominate 60% of the market. And we know from economic theory that that leads to higher prices. It just does. So Australia does need a nudge on productivity and competition, and I'll look closely at this report.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of work still ongoing. Andrew Leigh is doing some of that too, as we understand it. Look, finally, with the IR loopholes bill, looks set to travel through the Parliament. This right to disconnect power, which we discussed with Brendan O'Connor and others on the program a little earlier, is going to be implemented, it sounds like, so you don't have to respond unreasonably after hours. Will you pledge, Kate Thwaites, as an employer yourself in the Parliament, never to ask your staff to do anything after, say, 10:30 at night that might be unreasonable?
It's a very rare day that I am contacting my staff after 10:30 at night, so I can be clear on that. Look, my staff actually get paid an allowance to work outside of ordinary hours, and that's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about if you are that person on call or if you have that allowance to be, there for the rare call from the MP after 10:30 at night. We are talking about people who aren't paid for that, having a right to not take that call. So it's important to be clear about the group that we are talking about here. And certainly I know the approach that Tony Burke has taken to this part of the legislation and the legislation more broadly has been to work with business groups, to work with unions, to work across the Parliament, probably less so with the Liberals because they are never working for workers, but working with people who can come together and find a way through on this legislation, and I think that's what's happening.
Looks like that's going to happen very quickly. Keith, is that objectionable in your view?
Well, I think it's a side issue. This is a significant change that's coming in. A deal has been done. We don't know the details, but we do know it's going to add complexity and cost, and you're not looking after workers if they lose their job because a business can't afford to hire them anymore.
All right, let's return to to this and other matters of the day when we next get you both back. Kate Thwaites, Keith Wallahan, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.